Milwaukee sent me a 1-inch impact, and some of you suggested I start an engine with it. So we're just gonna put 2 and 2 together and try and start this thing with the new 1-inch Milwaukee cordless impact. Here we go. Did you check your engine compartment? Yes. Did you check your lights? Yes. Did you check your brakes? Yes. Your steering? Yes. Your wheels, tires, stop alarm works, emergency door works. We're good to go. I did my pre-circle. Oh, got that one back. It's not good. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is a 50s machine. Terrible design. The boom actually pivots behind the cab. So these machines killed a lot of people because they'd run out of gas or whatever. With the boom in the air, they'd climb out. It's kind of awkward climbing in and out. You accidentally hit a handle, drop the bucket, lose an arm or a neck, something like that. We've got old Widowmaker tires. These are the split rim. So these are dangerous. They don't allow those anymore. Basically, we're just gonna try and see if we can get this running just for fun. And then this is gonna be a showpiece for outside at the front of the yard, actually. It must have been sitting in a bush because there's a few years of moss there. It's got a 4-cylinder gas in it. The rotor and the points don't look too bad, so we might actually have a chance of starting this thing. So 12-volt battery will work on a 6-volt system for a very short amount of time, but it will burn out the coil. We're gonna assume that the 50 is probably 12-volt, even though this thing still has a crank start. So we can stick this in here, and the little spring is supposed to push the handle back out again when it starts. But basically, we can find the pulley, have it engaged, and see if it turns over. And actually, it does turn over. So the exhaust is missing, so all the water was running in. Hopefully not too much was getting in the engine because it was coming out here. It might got on the other side a little bit, but we'll see what happens. It's an updraft carburetor, so this is kind of what you'd see on a Massey Ferguson type thing. They're very simple. We'll pull the fuel line off. And we'll start with some brake clean, see if we can get some brake clean in there. So we're gonna throw a battery in it. We're gonna give it 12 volts. We're just gonna hot wire it in case none of the switches work. We're gonna weld a 1-inch socket to the bar, crank it over, see if we can get it to at least smoke or make some sort of noise. So here we go. You could weld that onto there and then that into there, somewhat centered. So we'll make sure it's in neutral. I imagine this is a starter, but I really don't care. This, don't know what that is. Don't know what this is. If this is probably high-low. This is probably 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are probably the controls to go up and down and tip your bucket. Other than that, I don't think there's anything to this machine. So we'll hot wire it, throw a battery in it, check the oil, take the intake off, crank it over. There we go. This is a fuel bowl. This used to be gas. You ever smell old varnished gas? It reminds everybody who's into cars of the first piece of junk that they bought and fought to try and get running. I think I should take the carb off real quick. Just open it up and clean it out because it's so simple, there's nothing to it. Because this is the magic of a simple updraft carburetor. This is your choke, so your air comes in, chokes it off to increase the vacuum to pull in a little bit more fuel for cold starts. So this is your float assembly. It's not full of fuel, so that's good. It's working as it should. So far, everything is leading in the right direction. I'm just gonna get rid of this fitting and just put this fitting right in here and eliminate the fuel bowl. So we checked the oil and there's still oil in it, so that's good. It's a little low, but don't worry about that. We got an oil pressure gauge here. So we can see if we have oil pressure while we're cranking. So we needed some fresh gas, so I got this, but it's kind of useless as a fuel pump. This is my fuel pump. So for 1 PSI, you just give her a little squeezy. But if you need 5 PSI, you just squeeze a little harder. I got bubbles coming from the side, but the bubbles stopped out of the carb. So the carburetor fuel bowl is full. If we need a little bit of pressure, we'll just give her a little squeeze. All right, so we got our perfectly centered, welded up socket. Stick that in there. You think it'll break it? We have bets going now. It's not turning it.
Did you turn it with the crank?
I did turn it with a crank, yeah. That's disappointing. All right, so I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit disappointed, but not in the gun at all, because it's not the gun's fault. An impact gun takes a quick little jolt and cracks something loose, but it doesn't really, it's not really intended for a constant turning. We will find a good use for this gun, but there is no impact that can actually start an engine. On Instagram, I asked, what should we do with this gun? And actually quite a few of you said start an engine with it, and I was curious, so I wanted to try it out. But we can put that myth to rest that an impact gun, because of the short jolts, cannot turn over an engine. So it's kind of a fail in this part. We'll definitely use the gun for intended purposes, but let's see if we can get this thing running anyway. It does have a starter. It is 12 volt because it's got an alternator on it, not a generator. So one fail. We got to have some sort of a run today. Let's go. Battery in. Bypass the solenoid here. That doesn't look promising, I'm not gonna lie. It's hot. Oh, well that's the problem. Right there, isn't it? That's the problem. Yeah, there we go, that came undone. I'll try that again. Got a little shock there. It's got spark. Ow! You don't always see it, but you do always feel it.
Oh, that smells right.
My fuel pump there, it came up above, so I bet you it would keep running. There we go. That should do it. I don't understand how this throttle's supposed to work though. Because that's just the governor. There should be a lever that comes out maybe on this end, and that's supposed to be your throttle, and then it kind of fights against. I don't know. That's weird. Anyway. Need like a string. What's that?
There's like fire all over.
It blew a spark plug right out of the hole. We'll just thread that back in again. Maybe if it's running on all cylinders, then Oh, these threads are completely stripped, yeah. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not, hold on. Whoa. Whoa. Maybe that one was just not plugged in. Let me tighten that up. All the spark plugs are loose.
All of them?
Yeah. Well, 2 out of 4 right now anyway. Fuel thing is an issue. I guess we're running low on gas. I'd like to hop in it and just see if the loader goes up and down. It like runs and then it spits and quits. I hot wired this switch a couple times and now I think it's working. So we might have power in the cab. I'm going to try and climb in the cab. This is my power to the coil, so I can lean through the back window if there's any trouble. This is really not working. Ha! Ha ha! So I think we have to stop here and call that a win. The clutch is seized, so I can't disengage the clutch. So I can stick it in gear. It does kind of, I put it in gear and just bounce the starter. It does move, but I can't disengage the starter. So for safety wise, we can't move this thing. I think this is still a win. It's a pretty cool little machine. And we got it running. Probably the first time I'm gonna call in 72 years. Even though the impact gun didn't do a job that it was never intended for in the first place, we'll find a proper use for it. We'll be back, but it is the end of the day, so we're gonna call that one more time. Come on. It's saying go home, and I agree with it, I'm going home.